Hi, I'm attorney Tammy Saltzman, and you are watching Divorce Connection Network. Today, I'm so pleased to introduce you to Susan Block. She is a licensed marital and family therapist. She's been practicing for 10 years and in private practice in Coral Springs for 3. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in this morning to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're so glad to have you here. So, Susan's practice deals with couples, individuals, and families that need counseling for many, many reasons. But one of the great things about Susan's practice is she creates outside-the-box projects that try to save marriages. So you were telling me before we went on air about your cooking class that you offer for couples.
Yes.
That's a nice thing.
I love the way you described it, and it's an out-of-the-box approach to reconnecting couples for those that are new parents, empty nesters, and it's a wonderful opportunity for them to either get connected or just to remain connected to one another.
I love that. I love outside-the-box concepts that help couples bond and reconnect and stay connected instead of the ultimate decision of getting a divorce. You know, we're all about trying to save marriages whenever we can, and when we can't, we have people like Susan who are going to help families as a whole go through the transformation of marriage, family, and then, unfortunately, some couples divorce. Is that correct?
It does. I mean, sometimes divorce is the only option to save a relationship, really.
I just love the whole cooking concept idea because sometimes when you introduce something new into a relationship, new sparks ignite. And if you can find joy and pleasure in cooking and then joy and pleasure in a project together, you can, really reignite flames that may have died. So I love that. I think that's great. And that's something I would totally be interested in.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I had couples in the last event that were texting me on the way home and sending pictures of their cooking meals weeks later.
Isn't that great? These are the types of things, if you're not happily married or your spouse is not paying attention, to maybe look for opportunities like a couples cooking class that could give you a project that you can do together. So unfortunately, some couples don't ignite the flame or reignite the flame, and they end up in your office and they're contemplating divorce.
Yes.
And so what would be your first tip to the audience that would help them have a successful divorce?
I think the first thing is really about how do they communicate about the concerns and issues they have in their family. Communication is key. Communication
is always key, and quite often communication is the reason you're getting a divorce. So it might not always be easy to communicate what your needs are as you're going through a divorce or what your expectations are from your spouse during the divorce, which is why it's always great to have a mental health professional on your team. As a lawyer, and you come in and see me, I'm going to counsel you on the law. I'm going to counsel you on what the law provides for protection, what you're entitled to by the Florida statutes, what your best case is in court, and what your worst case is in court. But who really wants to go to court and have a judge decide, right?
Absolutely.
So if you can help couples communicate better and be able to speak about your fears, your needs, your concerns in a more amicable way, guess what? It's going to cost you less money to get divorced. It's going to cause your family less aggravation and less fighting. When the lines of communication are open, quite often what happens is that you're able to communicate instead of the lawyers communicating.
Sure.
And when the lawyers communicate, quite often egos get involved and things get askew very quickly. And sometimes you get swept up in the fight when there really doesn't need to be a fight if you can properly communicate.
Definitely.
And the communication goes further. It goes further to communicating with you.
It is. It's, couples will come in and so often they're not even sure if they want to stay together or if they want to split apart. And by just coming in, even after a couple of sessions, they do realize that maybe the best option for them is to split. And to do so amicably is really healthy and important, especially if kids are involved.
Yeah. I know for me, I'm very good at communicating, but I jot down my points that I want to make. When I used to go to marriage counseling, I would come in with a little piece of paper and I would say, these are the things that I want to discuss today. These are the issues that occurred this week. This is what happened on Sunday with the kids, and I really want to address it. And the more organized I was, the more benefit I got,
Sure.
and the quicker my therapy worked. And unfortunately, I ended up divorcing, but my therapy sessions were successful because I was very organized and I kept notes during the month of what I wanted to because a lot of times you're in the heat of an argument and then in a few days you forget it. And then the following week you go to therapy and you really aren't still in the heat of the upset. So unless you have written journal of notes of how you were feeling and why you were feeling it and what that person did, you might not ever get it resolved because by the time they get to your office, they forgot.
And what I will provide for couples is tools and techniques, hands-on experience in the session. So it's not me just telling them how to do it. It's that they're actively engaging in those conversations in the therapy room.
I love
so
that.
I can guide them through the structure of their conversation.
That's perfect. Okay, what would be your second tip to help couples successfully divorce?
Especially when there's children involved, I think couples really need to realize they have to have a level of flexibility so that they can negotiate some of the terms that they have based on their agreement.
That's a great piece of advice. Quite often, whether you are using a divorce attorney, there are several ways that you can approach divorce. You can get a mediator that's going to help you mediate. You can use a collaborative approach where everyone signs an agreement saying they're not going to litigate. Or you can go the traditional way, which is litigation. In litigation, the only one who wins are the lawyers. And what does the judge know about your children? What does the judge know about your life? He has seen 5 or 6 cases that morning alone with families that have similar situations to yours. So if you can communicate clearly and be flexible in your negotiation, you have more control over what your outcome will be than if you leave it to the lawyers and the judges to decide for you. Plus, it's going to save you a tremendous amount of money in legal fees.
Can I add one thing to that? Especially when you have children, you really need things from your partner, whether you're still together or whether you're on the road to divorce. You really do need them still. And so if you're able to effectively communicate and come to a place where you can negotiate, you end up both winning in the end.
And it's all about compromise. Whether I am mediating, collaborating, or litigating, one person wants this, the other person wants this, and somewhere over here is the agreement. No one person is going to get every single demand that they want. And even though you may communicate what your needs are and your fears are, that doesn't mean that it's going to be handled and met in 100%. So you have to learn to be flexible.
Sure.
And it's really good that's a good tip. So the more you can negotiate, the more you can compromise, the more successful your divorce will be, and it will save you money. So you mentioned, and I know your third tip has to do with children, and I just want to preface by saying something you just mentioned. You can divorce your spouse. The judge will stamp a final judgment, and legally you are no longer married. But the truth is, if you have children, you are married forever. Because you will see your spouse at birthday parties, graduations, bar mitzvahs, confirmations, weddings, graduations. It goes on and on. I think I said graduations twice. But you will have to interact. Sometimes you will have to interact with new spouses and girlfriends and boyfriends, and you have to learn, for the sake of your children, how to get along. So, what is your third tip with regard to the kids? What's the number one important thing you can tell our audience?
To tell your children, not just by words, but by your actions, that you love them. That just because you fell out of love with your partner doesn't mean that you fell out of love with your children. And I think so often that parents have the idea that they love their children, they know they love their children, they even speak the words, "I love you," but their actions sometimes don't match that. And just because you tell your children you love them on a Monday, they need to be told that time and time again, especially during the process of divorce.
It's really important that you understand that people and children will only remember 10% of what you say to them. So actions speak so much louder than the words themselves. You can tell your child 100 times, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you," but it's more important to show them. So how would you show them that you love them, right? You would provide a safe environment. You would not fight with your spouse in front of your children, because that scares them and makes them feel unsafe. Feeling unsafe does not equal love. You would not bash your spouse in front of your child. You would not bash your spouse to someone else within earshot of your child. You would be very surprised to know that your children are listening. Even though they're in the back of the car with their headphones on, they are still listening to your phone conversation. They are downstairs in the family room watching or playing Xbox, but they are still listening. So actions speak louder than words. Remember, your child is made up of half of you and half of your spouse. When you reject your spouse, when you reject who that person is, you are actually rejecting your child, half of your child. So be very careful.
I couldn't agree more. I think that these tips are really important for couples that are going through, in the talking stage of divorce, or actually going through the process of separation and then eventually divorce.
Yes, and never stay together for the sake of the children, because they're smart, they get it. They would much rather see two happy parents alone than two miserable parents together. On that note, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you. If you want to find Susan's information, go to divorceconnectionnetwork.com, click on her contact information. There'll be a link to her website. Thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time.